My son called me on a Tuesday afternoon, which should have been the first sign that something was off. He never calls on Tuesdays. He calls on Sunday evenings, always around 7, always for about 12 minutes, and we talk about football or the weather or whatever project he's working on at the firm. Tuesdays were not our thing, so when his name came up on my phone while I was sitting on the back porch eating a sandwich, I picked up with a little more attention than usual. "Hey, Dad," he said. "Just checking in." That's it, just checking in. I said, "Fine, I'm fine. How are you? How's Renata?" He said, "Fine, she's fine. Busy with the new marketing campaign. You know how it is." I said I did know how it is, even though I didn't, not really. I've worked with my hands my whole life. I spent 31 years building custom cabinetry and finished carpentry in the greater Columbus area. I know how sawdust feels in your lungs and how your knees ache at 50. I don't know much about marketing campaigns, but I love my son, and I was proud of him the way only a father who built things with his hands can be proud of a son who went to law school. It felt like I had made something with my life that outlasted me, like the best piece of work I ever did wasn't a set of kitchen cabinets, it was him. His name is Donovan. He's 36 now. He got his undergraduate degree from Ohio State on a partial scholarship, and when he got into law school at Indiana University, I took out a second mortgage on this house. $42,000. I want you to sit with that number for a second. I was 51 years old. I just started feeling the arthritis in my right hand, and I signed papers that put this house, the house I built a significant portion of with my own hands, the house where Donovan grew up, where his mother and I raised him after his sister left for college. I put that house on the line so my son could become a lawyer. I'm not saying that to ask for anything back. I'm saying it so you understand where I was standing when everything I'm about to tell you happened. He met Renata his second year of law school. She was finishing an MBA at the same university, and I'll admit, when he first brought her home for Thanksgiving, I liked her. She was sharp. She had opinions about things. She laughed at my jokes, which, in my experience, is the fastest way to get on my good side. Her family was from the Chicago suburbs, comfortable people. Her father worked in finance. Nothing wrong with any of that. What I noticed, slowly, over the years that followed, was the way certain things started to shift around her. The way Donovan would glance at her before answering questions I asked him directly. The way holiday plans started getting adjusted to fit her family's schedule first, and then whatever was left over came to me. Small things. The kind of things you tell yourself you're imagining because you don't want to be that father. The clingy one. The one who can't let his son be a grown man. So I told myself I was imagining it. They got married 4 years ago. I gave them $20,000 as a wedding gift, which was everything I had saved in the 2 years prior. I wanted to give them a real start. I wanted Donovan to be able to afford the kind of honeymoon he deserved, the kind of apartment they deserved, without starting their marriage stressed about money. He hugged me at the reception in a way that made me feel like maybe everything was going to be okay. When Donovan made partner at his firm last spring, not the original firm he joined, but the second one, a mid-sized litigation firm downtown where he'd been working for 3 years, they started talking about opening a satellite office. A smaller practice, his own name on the door, focused on estate planning and business contracts. His vision, his idea, and he needed capital to get it started. He asked me over dinner. Just the two of us, a steak place he liked, and he laid it out carefully, the way lawyers do, like he was presenting a case. He needed $60,000 to cover the lease deposit on a commercial space, office furniture, the first 6 months of operating costs while the client base built up. He said he'd pay me back within 3 years. He had a repayment plan written up. He could show me the spreadsheet. I didn't ask to see the spreadsheet. I knew what I was doing. I'm not a fool. I'm a man who mortgaged his house for his son's education and didn't lose a night of sleep over it. And I wasn't going to start acting like a banker now. This was my son. This was his dream. I told him yes, I'd figure it out. I had some money in a retirement account I'd been building since I was 35, and I liquidated a portion of it. Took the tax penalty and everything. $60,000 wired to Donovan's business account in March. That was 8 months before the party. What party? That's the part I keep coming back to. That's the part that woke me up. Donovan called me on a Saturday morning in November, and I could tell from his voice something was already wrong. He was too casual, too even. When Donovan is delivering bad news, he gets very even, like he's trying to flatten the words before they land. He told me there was going to be a grand opening celebration for the new office, a cocktail party, catered, about 70 guests, that Friday evening. He said it was going to be mostly clients, colleagues from the firm, a few professional contacts of Renata's. I said, "That's great, son. What time should I be there?" There was a pause. It wasn't long, maybe 2 seconds, but I've known this man since the moment he was born, and 2 seconds felt like a year. "Dad," he said, "Renata and I talked about it, and we think it's better to keep it professional, just, industry people." I asked him what that meant. "It means it's more of a networking event," he said, "not really a family thing." I sat with that for a moment. I asked if his mother-in-law would be there. Another pause. "She's involved in some of our client referrals, so yes." I said okay. I said I understood. I kept my voice the same temperature it had been at the beginning of the call. I said congratulations, and I meant it, and I told him I hoped the event went well. We hung up. I put the phone down on my kitchen table, and I sat there for probably 15 minutes without moving. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment. It wasn't just hurt. It was a specific kind of hurt that I think only parents know, where you suddenly see a version of your child you don't recognize, and you wonder when that version appeared and how long you've been missing it. The next day, I called my sister, Wanda, who lives in Cincinnati and has been my sounding board for the better part of 40 years. I told her what happened. She listened without interrupting, which is remarkable because Wanda can interrupt the pause between sentences. When I finished, she said, "Bernard, what did Renata say exactly? Did you talk to her?" I hadn't talked to Renata directly. I called her that afternoon. She picked up on the second ring, which surprised me. She was pleasant. She asked how I was, how the weather was in Columbus, like we were neighbors catching up over the fence. And then I asked her, straight out, what Donovan had told me and whether that was the final word on it. She said, "Yes. I think you understand, Bernard. This is a professional event. It's about positioning Donovan correctly in the market. The guest list is very curated. It's really for people who are coming in a professional capacity." I said, "I helped finance this office." She said, "And Donovan is very grateful for your support." She said it the way someone reads a prepared statement. I said, "I just want to be there for my son's opening night." She said, "I understand, but I think it's better this way." That was the conversation. 4 minutes and 30 seconds because I checked after I hung up. I didn't call Donovan back. I thought about it. I thought about it for 3 days. I thought about driving downtown and standing outside the building on the night of the party just to see it with my own eyes. I thought about writing a letter. I thought about doing a lot of things that would have made me feel something in the moment and nothing good afterward. Instead, I drove to my attorney's office. I've used the same attorney for 20 years, a man named Fowler who helped me with the original mortgage paperwork and my wife's estate after she passed. I sat across from his desk and I told him what I needed. The $60,000 I had given Donovan was structured as a personal loan, not a gift, with a written agreement he had signed before I wired the money. It was his idea, actually. He was the one who insisted on the paperwork, said he wanted to do it right, wanted me protected. At the time, I thought it was just Donovan being careful and professional. I signed it without thinking much about the terms. Sitting in Fowler's office, I thought about the terms very carefully. The agreement had a clause, standard apparently in informal loan documents, that allowed the lender to request full repayment within 60 days under certain conditions, one of which was a material change in the borrower's financial circumstances. The office opening, the new business, the lease on a commercial space that qualified. I'm not going to tell you I was certain this was the right thing to do. I drove home from Fowler's office and I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes. I thought about Donovan at 8 years old, helping me sand the edges of a bookshelf we were building together in the garage. I thought about driving him to Columbus for his bar exam results, how he shook for the entire 2-hour drive. I thought about every birthday and every Christmas and every Sunday evening phone call that made me feel like I was still part of his life. And then I thought about Renata's voice on the phone. That flat, prepared statement voice. This is a professional event. I think it's better this way. I called Fowler the next morning and told him to send the letter. The party was on a Friday night. I found out later it went well, from a neighbor of mine whose son works at the same firm as one of Donovan's colleagues. 73 guests. Open bar. They had it catered by a restaurant Renata liked. Good food, apparently. Donovan gave a speech. His in-laws were there, both of them. His mother-in-law and a dress she'd apparently bought specifically for the occasion. The letter from Fowler's office arrived at Donovan's home address the following Monday. I didn't hear from Donovan that Monday. I didn't hear from him Tuesday either, which surprised me because I thought the letter would get a faster reaction. Wednesday morning, I was in my garage reorganizing my tool wall when my phone rang. It was Renata. I let it ring. She called again 20 minutes later. I let that one ring too. The third time, I picked up. She was not using her prepared statement voice anymore. She said there must be some kind of misunderstanding, that the loan wasn't due, that they had an agreement. I told her she was welcome to review the loan document, specifically Section 4, Paragraph 2. She asked what I thought I was doing. I said I was exercising a right available to me under a contract her husband had signed. She said this was going to hurt Donovan's business. I said I was sorry to hear that. She asked me what I wanted. I said I didn't want anything. I said I wanted to have a conversation with my son. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'll have him call you. He called that evening. He sounded tired and younger than 36, in the way that trouble makes people sound like younger versions of themselves. He didn't start with anger, which I'd expected. He started with confusion, like he was trying to find the beginning of something he couldn't locate. He said, Dad, I don't understand. The business just opened. You know the first year is the hardest. This could shut everything down before it starts. I said, I know. He said, then why? I said, I want to talk to you in person. Come over Saturday. I'll make coffee. He came. He sat at my kitchen table, which is the same table he sat at every morning for breakfast all through high school. He looked around the kitchen the way people do when they haven't been somewhere in a while, like they're recalibrating. He'd been to this house twice in the past year. I poured coffee. I sat across from him. I didn't speak right away. I let the quiet do some of the work. Eventually I said, when your mother was sick, she asked me once if I thought we'd raised you right. She was worried, near the end, about whether we'd given you the right things. I told her yes. I believed it completely. He didn't say anything. I said, I mortgaged this house for your education. I drained a retirement account to help you open that office. I've been at every graduation, every court appearance you let me attend, every Sunday evening for 12 years. I've never once asked you to choose between me and your wife. I have never made demands. I have never shown up somewhere I wasn't wanted. I paused. I just wanted to be there, I said. That's all I was asking for. One night, to stand in a room and watch my son be introduced as the owner of his own practice. I've been imagining that moment since you were in law school. Donovan looked at his coffee cup. A long time passed. When he looked up, his eyes were wet, which I hadn't seen in years. He's not a man who cries easily. He got that from me, which I've never been entirely sure is a gift. He said, I didn't handle it right, Dad. I knew it when I made the call to you, and I let it happen anyway. He exhaled slowly. She had a vision for what the night was supposed to be, and I didn't want to fight about it. I took the path that felt easier. I said, you let her make that call for you. He said, yes. I didn't respond to that. There was nothing to add. He asked me about the loan. He asked carefully what I needed him to do. I told him I didn't need him to pay it back early. That was never really the point, and I think we both understood that without saying it. I told Fowler the next week to withdraw the demand letter, and we restored the original repayment schedule. What I needed was for my son to understand that I am not a transaction, that 36 years of being his father, of being present and sacrificing and believing in him when the hours were long and the money was tight, that doesn't get quietly moved to the side when it becomes inconvenient. I am not a line item. I am not a prior relationship to be managed around. I am his father. Renata and I have not spoken since the phone call. I don't know if we ever will in the same easy way we used to, and I've made a kind of peace with that. Some bridges change shape after they've been tested. You can still cross them, but you know what they're made of now. What I do know is that Donovan started calling on Tuesdays again. Not every Tuesday, but enough. He came by in December and helped me rehang a door in the spare bedroom that had been sticking since September. We worked in the way we used to work when he was a teenager, not talking much, just doing the thing, and it felt like something being slowly, carefully repaired. I'm 63 years old. I've buried a wife. I've rebuilt this house twice over. I've had my hands in enough wood and wire and plaster to fill a warehouse. I know what it takes to fix something properly. You don't rush it. You find the problem, you do the work, and you let the joint set before you put any weight on it. That's what we're doing now, taking our time, letting it set. And I'll tell you one more thing, because I think it matters. A few months after all of this, I got a call from one of Donovan's new clients, an older gentleman, a business owner who was updating his estate plan. He told me he'd asked Donovan how he came to open his own practice, what the story was behind it. And Donovan had told him his father believed in him before he believed in himself, that his father had put everything on the line, and that he was working every day to be worth it. The client told me that story because he thought I should know. I think he was right. I keep thinking about something Donovan said when he was maybe 12 years old. We were finishing a set of built-in shelves in the living room, and he asked me why I bothered making the back panel smooth since nobody would ever see it. I told him that the work doesn't change based on who's watching. You do it right because that's who you are, not because someone's keeping score. I didn't know I was teaching him something. I thought I was just answering a question about wood. What I've come to understand, after everything that happened with the party and the loan letter and all the long silences in between, is that the choices we make when things get hard are the ones that actually define us. Not the speeches, not the graduations, not the toasts at someone else's catered event. Donovan had a moment where he chose the easier path. Let Renata handle it. Don't fight about the guest list. Just make the call to Dad and hope he understands. And I think part of him knew, even as he dialed my number that Saturday morning, that understanding and accepting are two very different things. That's not a character flaw I can hold against him forever. Lord knows I've taken the easy path a time or two in my own life. But I needed him to see what that choice cost. Not in dollars. The $60,000 was never really the point, and he knew it. It cost something harder to name. It cost me the feeling that I was still counted among the people who mattered to him. The thing about integrity, doing right by people even when it's inconvenient, even when your wife has a vision for the evening, is that you don't get to outsource it. Donovan is a smart man. He can read a contract better than anyone I know. He can argue both sides of a case and make you believe either one. But intelligence, without the willingness to use it honestly, to look at a situation and say this is wrong even when it's uncomfortable, that's just a tool sitting in a drawer. Doesn't do anybody any good. And then there's the matter of what it takes to come back from something like this. Donovan drove to this house on a Saturday and sat at that kitchen table and admitted what he'd done, straight out, without hiding behind language. That took something. That took the kind of backbone that isn't taught in law school. I've watched men twice his age refuse to do what he did that morning because admitting you were wrong feels like losing. He didn't treat it like losing. He treated it like something that needed fixing, and he picked up the tools and got to work. I think his mother would have been proud of that part. The coming back. The not letting pride win. I'm 63 years old and I've learned that most things in life operate on a pretty simple principle. What you put in tends to come back around, one way or another. Not always on your timeline. Not always in the form you expected, but the effort you make, the honesty you bring, the willingness to stay in the room when it's hard, those things accumulate. They build something. Same as laying down good wood. Same as making the back panel smooth, even when nobody's looking. Donovan called me last Tuesday. We talked for 22 minutes, which is a new record.